Good evening. Welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board for Monday, August 4th, 2014. To call the meeting to order, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Ricciardi, roll call, please.
Trustee Durant.
Here.
Trustee Truscott.
Here.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Pompo.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, Township Lawyer Roger Zampa, Jason McCarthy, Township Planner, Mike Springer, John Marks, and Dave Wiegand from various committees.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, the consent agenda is here to dispense those items that do not typically require board action or deliberation. This evening includes the approval of the prior meeting minutes of July 15th. Received committee reports, the Ionor Heritage Trail Rec Authority minutes from June 25th, their agenda of July 23rd, the Recreation Committee minutes of June 10th, and the draft minutes of July 15th. Fire Department Officers Meeting draft minutes of July 7th, Fire Department draft minutes of July 14th, the Market Area Wastewater Treatment Facility Ad Board draft minutes of July 17th. Also correspondence not requiring any board action from the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency announcing a meeting for the 8th and 9th, I believe, or this weekend at any rate, for any area veterans. Bills payable in the amount of $250,058.37. Financial statements and treasurer's report from June of 2014. Are there any items in the consent agenda that any board member wishes to remove for further discussion? Clerk Rattari.
I don't have anything to remove, but I got two corrections on the minutes on page 4. On the motion, consider final payment for the Center Street lift station, and not the motion, but the agenda item. I originally had Trustee Pompo seconding that, and he was not here with us, so it's kind of hard to second it when he's not here. So it was the corrected second was Trustee LaRue, and the motion was made by Clerk Rattari on that one. And then the last correction is on page 6 of the minutes. It was to adjourn the meeting. Again, Trustee Pompo showed up. So it should have been Clerk Rattari and Trustee Durant. So those are the only changes in the minutes. So I'll make a motion. Oh, yeah, and I'll correct that absent, that A's was 6, 0, and 1 also. I'll correct that also. So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, or the minutes as corrected.
Second.
Motion is second. Any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the corrected minutes, say aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as corrected, or as amended, I should say.
Support.
Motion and support to approve the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is approval of the remainder of the agenda. Are there any board members wishing to make adjustments to the agenda as presented? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Support.
Motion and support to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. This will bring us up to the public comment portion of this evening's meeting. Those members of the public wishing to address this board may do so at this time. Please approach the podium. First and last name and address if you would.
Mike Springer, 206 Eagles Nest Road. I'd just like to make a comment at the time that you look at item 10D on the warming shed at Lions Field. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board?
I'm Steve Pence from 453 East Michigan Street, City Marquette.
I'm one of your 2 county commissioners, and we both happen to be here tonight because it's rare for you to have a meeting on a night that doesn't conflict with us. And you're changing yours because of the election, and I understand parking considerations, and county government will meet tomorrow night at our regular time. I'm going to be very brief. I have, as most of you know, 2/3, I think, of the population of your township, everybody north of the highway, in my commissioner district. Commissioner Heichel has the other portion. I also have about maybe 1/3 or less of the population of the city of Marquette as my district, and then all of Powell Township. And I've been acutely aware of trying to balance the interests between those diverse and divergent units of government ever since I've been on the board. And I certainly have, for the most part, worked behind the scenes to balance those issues. And the issue that's been first and foremost, probably since I got on the board, was truck traffic and the bypass or whatever we're going to attempt to do to solve a problem that perhaps should have been solved a long time ago. And I see it's on your agenda tonight, and I found out about that, and I thought I would come over here. And Commissioner Hakela is also here because of his similar interest. It was a month ago, I think, although it wasn't my first discussion behind the scenes with township or city officials regarding this route, that I appeared with Mr. McCarthy, and all of you on the board are aware of the remarks I made at that time, suggesting that the city of Marquette doesn't always play fair with its neighbors. And there's a newspaper article since that time suggesting that maybe some regional cooperation will help. And this is more in the bailiwick of the County Road Commission, who's been working with you, rather than the county board. But on the other hand, it affects everybody in my district, and I've been paying attention and have perhaps not always had a leadership role in that because of the Road Commission's involvement, but have been aware and have been trying to suggest regional cooperation. And I think we're making some progress in that direction. So I'm going to stay tonight through agenda item 8A and listen to what you say, and certainly I was open for input from you in terms of how best to move toward a solution that involves community cooperation. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else?
After Steve's remarks, I can say ditto. But I'm here just to, I've met most of the trustees on the board, and I've stopped by to see you during previous elections, so you know who I am. But I just want to stop by again and say hello, and I'll let you know about a little bit about myself. I'm Bruce Heichela. I've lived in Marquette County all my life. It's very important to me, and my third of the district in Marquette Township is just as important as his 2/3. So everybody should be treated equally, and I represent a district. Part of it's the city of Marquette, part of it's Marquette Township, but I also represent every resident in Marquette County. So that's what I'm interested in. And what I want to see is cooperation. As you know, the county's been very trying to get this bypass done and been very instrumental in trying to set meetings up. So, and we still support doing these things. And the other thing we've worked on a lot is the big box store issue, which is very important to you, and it's going to be very, very important to everybody else in the state. And it's a big issue, and we're happy that you we're working on it, and we're happy to support it. But the transportation issue is going to be a big issue, and we're going to be right there. So just thank you for your time, and if there is anybody who ever has a question on anything concerning the county or anything else, feel free to call me. I'm in the phone book. I've been in there, same number for 35 years. I'm on the county website. I'm not leaving. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment, move to board member comment. Those members of the board wishing to make comment may do so at this time. Pete?
I would just like to thank the people who attended the community days yesterday, or Saturday, Sunday, whatever it seems like, 'cause they're all blended together. I think we all had a good time. Second thing I'd like to do is welcome UP Hair Company, opened up in Marquette Township, over in our little mall between Arby's and Channel 3 there. I don't know if I'll attend very much because there's not much here, so, but they did join the Marquette Township Business Quarter, so welcome. That's all I have.
Thanks, Pete. Dan, anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to give congratulations to the Marquette Township Fire Department race team, who took an overall winner in the 4th of July in Marquette, took an overall winner in the Nagani Pioneer Days, and at the UP tournaments this year, took a second, a fourth, and 2/5 for an overall of 5th place out of 21 teams that raced. They placed in 4 of the 5 races. So I think they did an excellent job, and I just want to congratulate them.
Thanks, Dan. Lynn?
No, sir, thanks.
Diana?
The only thing I have in reading the Marquette Area Wastewater Treatment Facility, they put a budget together and then submitted it to the city of Marquette. I think we being a 10% owner, we should at least get a look at the budget that they're talking about. We may not be able to do much about it, but we should have a copy of it for our own benefit and that, so we know where we're going. That's it.
We can provide you with a copy of that, Ernie. Clerk Rattari?
Just, again, I was at the community day, everything went good. The old timers game we had there seemed to go very well. The old timers had a lot of fun, so I think they'll be back for next year. And election tomorrow. I was here Saturday. Unfortunately we didn't have anyone come to take advantage of the office hours, but tomorrow polls open at 7, close at 8, and me and my assistant Lois, we went through everything today, and we should be ready to roll.
Thanks, Clerk Rattari. Again, I'll echo what some board members said about the community events committee. I'd like to say hats off to them for planning another excellent Community Days event at Lions Field. It went over really well. I think the Texaco Country Showdown is a draw. The band that played the reveal for Saturday evening certainly was a draw. The softball tournament went well. We have another new winner this year. It was called Team Bean, and this motley group who showed up thinking that they didn't have enough players to play ended up winning the tournament when all was said and done for first place. They battled the Marquette Township team, who came in second this year. Were unable to be repeat champions, but a good time was had by all. It was a good day. Thank the fire department for being out there and serving food, and especially thanks to the Lions Club for being there and holding the beer tent. And all in all, it was a very, very successful event again. Looking forward to seeing what happens for our 5th annual next year. We keep on tweaking it a little bit each year, but hats off to the event committee. There's a few people on there that Todd Nordyke, Julie Peterson, Leanne Kashmarsky were kind of the bones of it. More people have been added on as we move forward. We've got representatives from the fire department. Manager Gerard is involved, and every year it's a lot of hard work. And again, hats off to them for putting together an excellent show. I know it's a lot of hard work. So I just want to say commend them, and thanks everybody for coming out. Hope you can make it next year. With that, we'll close board member comment and move to the forum discussion, agenda item number 8A. Forum discussion, 30 minutes max. We're not here to take any formal actions under this forum discussion. It's really open so that the board can have a discussion about the direction that we're in based on recent events, including the City of Marquette proposed truck traffic ordinance. I know you guys have seen it. We've sent out copies of it. We also sent out a copy from the Marquette County Road Commission. Thanks to manager, engineer Jim Iwaniki, who has tried to be creative in developing solutions. I did send that out to the board to look it over. You've seen or probably heard through local media that the City of Marquette is proposing to pass the ordinance but put a 2-year time limit on it, allowing trucks to travel for 2 years up until such time that as long as the bypass is then permitted and funded, they would allow a north-south route to continue through the city. If the end of that 2 years, the route is not permitted and or funded, then their ordinance would cease to allow commercial truck traffic through the city. one of the things that this board has been very consistent and very transparent on through all of these conversations, going back to 2008 when the city proposed the truck ordinance, was that one of the things that we've looked at in a bypass, and it certainly is in our long-range plans, has been part of our roads facilities plan for probably 10 years or more. We certainly are always looking for ways to improve the safety of all of our citizens, whether they live here or they're passing through on the corridor. But we also recognize that our downtown is 55 miles an hour through the busiest corridor in the UP, some 34,000 cars per day. The proposed ordinance that the city of Marquette has put out there is rerouting that traffic back through the corridor. And I think that that's unfortunate because I'm sure that a very large portion of the 34,000 cars a day are also city residents who are traveling that route. Do we need a bypass? Potentially we do. About a year ago when we started this conversation, I had at that time asked everybody to consider a regional traffic study, and then based upon the recommendations of the regional traffic study to implement a bypass which would make the most sense moving forward for the next 30 or 35 years based upon anticipated growth patterns. Everybody had agreed to it. In fact, Lundin Mining had agreed to finance that up to $500,000. But as the conversations continued, the Lundin Mining Company had to back out as they negotiated with the city of Marquette for the settlement that they were looking for them to be able to traverse the 3.3 miles of city roads once they come down County Road 550 to take Sugarloaf to Wright Street and around. So there were no meetings held during that time. The last time we had discussed anything was in January. We finally were called to a meeting again in July by Lundin after they had made agreements with the city. At that time we met, and the city said they had potentially 3 different ordinances planned and that they were working on those, and as soon as those were available, we'd hear, what the decision was. They wanted to know, if we were going to be prepared to build the bypass. So that kind of brings us up to where we are today. They'd asked to have another meeting after the city had done their workshop and had done their proposed bypass 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Lundin asked about calling another meeting and invited myself to it and Manager Gerard to attend. I asked them to hold off on scheduling that meeting if they would until the board had the opportunity at this meeting to discuss what our future direction is going to be. If you look at their road plan, they, and I concur that they shouldn't have trucks perhaps on Lake Shore or maybe 3rd Street or even Front Street. Because I go there on a daily basis and recreate, and I can certainly understand their concerns. What I can't understand is suddenly deciding that McClellan Avenue is no longer a truck route. I think I've shared with most of you that I can be happy to show you all the Mining Journal articles that I've pulled that have identified that that was a truck route going back to 1965, has been in their master plan since 1965. I can certainly share with you the comments on the front page of the Mining Journal from everybody, including many of the currently seated city council members. The former mayor, their planner, all had comments about how this was an important north-south truck route in order to safely move that truck traffic through with the minimal disruption to their residents. And then suddenly this year, it has never been designed to be a truck route. I guess that concerns me a little. They want to push the truck traffic out. My concerns are that with this bypass, I want the board to consider a couple of things. The most westerly route will require condemnation of a township resident's property in order for that route to go through. Because as of right now, that property owner continues to say they have no interest in land deal, a land swap, a purchase, anything else. So I think that should be considered by you guys. I also think that you should consider, if the city blocks this truck traffic, what they're hoping to do is have the truck traffic is going to come out through the corridor, get to the bypass, come around, and then come back around into the city, including the Cliffs trucks heading out to Presque Isle. Also, all the trucks coming down will take the bypass out and then take a left and drive east back through to get to McClellan to turn south to head to Escanaba. It puts a tremendous amount of additional truck traffic into a corridor that doesn't necessarily have to be there. They could drive up the truck route of McClellan and go right through, and I think that's probably the best option for everybody. I also have concerns about being put under an arbitrary 2-year time frame by the city of Marquette. I'm not sure that it could be permitted or financed. Initially, it had been talked about being $10 to $12 million. The last numbers at the meeting in July were closer to $24 million of taxpayer money being spent to fund this bypass route. I've got some real concerns about that, because you have to know that you're going to look your residents in the eye and try to explain to them why you think it was a good idea to support a bypass route that spent $24 million when our roads are not in the best shape by any way, shape, and means, as we prepare to ask them for up to $7 million to fix the roads that we won't own when we're done fixing them, so that our own township can have decent roads to drive on. So that's another one of my concerns. The other thing is that additional truck traffic in the corridor coming down, turning east and heading out. I have very real concerns about that. And I think that, maybe we go back to where we were a year ago, saying what we need is a regional traffic study that provides a well thought out and reasoned approach to where that bypass belongs. And then once we have that and we can have a fact-based decision, we can go to our residents and say, this is where we support the bypass, and it's because of the facts that we've received from the engineers and the experts in the field. Just moving forward, because the city's put us on a 2-year time schedule, causes me to have some pretty grave concerns moving forward. With that, I'll open it up for board discussion. Also, members of the public here are free to participate. It is a forum discussion. Pete?
It's kind of funny because, McClellan, like you say, has been, I've been here, I'll be 70 in 2 months. Born and raised South Marquette. It's always been on the target, McClellan, to be a truck road, all right? We're only talking about a short distance. Yes, we're talking about people's residential area, but, when they took 7th Street and made it cut across by Snowberry and took their neighborhood away from them, to take from the Vineyard all the way up to the hospital and up to the Northern, did they give that much consideration? They took their neighborhoods right out of them. You can't park on the side of the road anymore. That's almost like a highway going right up there. They took that away. Are they going to take Wright Street, put it back to 4-lane again? I live on a block off of Wright Street on Woodridge and Huron. Sometimes you got to sit there and wait because it's all single file now. It's just like a 2-rut road. We don't have two lanes going out of Marquette. If they're going to start putting all the truck routes on Wright Street, we're going to have just as many trucks on Wright Street as we will on the highway. Not for sure, but I just don't. I think the regional study is a very good idea. McClellan makes the most sense. Where else can you go? Can you go Miskey Avenue, cut all the way down to East Avenue? That don't make sense either. You're going to go along the lake like Chicago. They take all the trucks around the lake. No, because we got all the housing, we got the parks and everything else down that way. So we're not going to do that. What makes the most sense? McClellan Avenue. So we never had this much problem before. It's always been in the plan to go to McClellan Avenue, and all of a sudden, oh hell, there's money out there. So that's the driving force here. So who are we trying to kid? Let's call it what it is. It just bothers me that we're just playing these games. 595 is makes the most sense. I think we should push that thing and try to get that through. So it just blows your mind. It's just common sense what we should be doing here. So we're just wasting a lot of time and a lot of money. So
Thanks, Pete. Dan?
Well, I agree. It's McClellan's always been at the east-west truck route, or the east-west, the
North-south.
north-south truck route. Putting trucks onto 41 going east at that turn is just going to create a total disaster. I mean, no matter what they do, they're going to block traffic. And I'm assuming they're coming out by the Walmart.
Yep.
Which as itself, you have cars coming from Walmart as well as cars turning west on the Walmart one for that turn thing. There's not a turn arrow there, so those trucks are waiting for those cars to come out of Walmart, which is only going to block traffic ungodly amount of times. I mean, even without the trucks, I've been sitting at that corner sometimes waiting for a light. It'll go through the light, and I'll still be sitting there at the corner, not being able to get past. So, yeah, I just think McClellan obviously is the logical route. I agree that we should do a study. I don't know where we would get the money to actually complete this bypass road that we need, but it's obvious that we're not going to get much money from the state. So, but I agree with Pete. I believe that McClellan obviously is the only answer.
Thanks, Dan. Diana?
I concur with Dan and Pete. I think that McCollum Street is the best answers. And then, you don't have to go through all the people and stuff, I think, and it's safety. All them trucks and cars and just safety. So I think McCollum's the best bet.
Thanks. Lynn?
Couple things. 2 weeks ago, I attended the city work session, and prior to that, I think it might have been November of last year when we heard that there was a meeting with, I guess, Lundin and the road commission, and Dennis went, and probably the city, some of the city. Well, the city typically sends 3 people when they go to their meetings, and they request that. And I remember talking about it at some of our board meetings, and I called Dennis and I said, how come the rest of the board, why does the city get to do this when there's invitations and meetings and stuff? And he pointed out, and he did subsequently at some of our meetings, that those were invitation type meetings, that the one I'm referring to was Lundin invited the principals, if you want to call it that, the city, the county, the road commission, everything. So I just said to him, I said, if we have a case where it's more of an open forum, I'd like to be included in that. We all have our interests, specific interests on the board. So he said, fine. Okay, so I went to the work session at the city, and the tone is the meeting is kind of what I wanted to convey. Because it's a work session, it's a little more comfortable, of course. They didn't stand on rules too much, so there was a lot more discussion. But by the time I got finished listening to the meeting, I had the impression that this was a follow-up meeting after a bunch of other meetings, and this was the compilation of what they were trying to decide. And they did decide, the consensus was that they were going to do this moratorium. Dennis did an excellent job of summarizing the whole truck traffic issue. And I came away from there thinking, why in the heck haven't we talked about this or been involved in this in the last 7 months? If this is the culmination and they're putting this into place, where have we been? Why haven't they asked us, or why haven't we been invited? So I called Dennis, and in fact, let me back up. One of the commissioners approached me afterward and asked my opinion, and I said, I'm kind of surprised at what y'all decided and how this transpired, and the commissioner said, well, have you been talking about this? And I said, no, we've had our thoughts known and made our position. We want a north-south route. So I thought, where's the disconnect? So I called Dennis and I said, okay, I went to this meeting. Now I need the rest of the story. Apparently there haven't been any meetings with all of these groups, unless maybe there had been and the township hadn't been invited. And I told this commissioner that, I said, there's no reason, you all keep saying, well, the township's right there, let's get together, let's talk, let's work this out, and nobody does. So we've wasted 7 or 8 months of productive time we could have had, and I told him, I said, our supervisor and our manager have suggested a regional study, why can't we look at that? Well, we're taking this, we're talking about it, and apparently they're doing all the talking, and we're still being left out, which has been the case since day one. So, I was disappointed, like I said, at the direction that they were planning on going. We hadn't been included, we haven't been considered, we haven't been consulted, we haven't been anything. So I left there pretty frustrated, and I would like to think, I have said from the beginning, number one, and I say we collectively because everyone that talks about this has been saying, high-speed truck traffic is one of the terms that kept floating around that commission meeting. Well, there isn't any high-speed truck traffic. These truckers are, and in my experience, I should say, now if anybody else has any other issues, I don't know, but they're respectful, they do the speed limit, they're stopping, they're not killing people, they're not running kids over, they're coming across as being the bad guys, and I just hate that. I've said this before, but I think they're getting a bum rap. And I think the regional study has to be what we look at. If we tried to condense everybody, the road commission, the township, maybe Negaunee Township, the county, the city, maybe Sands Township, Chocolate, because it's going to go through the corridor, whether it's from south to north or east to west, it's going to involve all of us. It needs to involve the whole county. Maybe we get the trucking association involved, Powell Township, and I think it's all in our best interest. When I heard Dennis's idea for that, I thought that just makes the most sense. And why we can't include everybody. I'm tired of the city continually supporting business and supporting the mine, and it's okay to take the money and the tax money and the incentives for the county, but it's the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. And the whole McClellan thing, I got online too and studied it. It's been ridiculous. We know that there were people that held property in that area on purpose, knowing that that was going to be open, that it would be more valuable. And so what? There's nothing wrong with that, but this is a ridiculous discussion that keeps going on and on and on, and it's a classic example of government not doing anything. And I think we need to step up and be the ones to say, this is what we're going to do. Let's call another meeting. We'll call it. We'll invite, when we invited them tonight, I believe, Dennis, we invited the city and the county, I'm not sure, knowing that this would be the discussion. And maybe we just have to take the initiative and try to collect money from these people and invite them and say, this needs to be done. I don't like being held captive. I live with trucks all day long, shaking my house and cracking my foundation. You don't hear me complaining. It's part of the deal. It's what we live with. We have mining. We have. My husband was saying the other day, the logging trucks that come down from Big Bay, they're cautious, they're careful, they stop before they enter the city, they check their ropes, they check their chains. This is not like some fiasco of people dying in the streets thing. This is a logistics issue that we should be able to, as elected officials and staff, come together and figure this out. And I think we need to do it because the city's not going to step forward. So I think if we make a decision, we need to take whatever steps are necessary to just put it into place. Period. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Ernie?
How do I follow that?
Ditto.
I think the biggest thing is, going back to Trustee LaRue's last statement, is money. That's what it amounted to with the city of Marquette. That's what they're concerned with, is strictly money, how much they could get from them. And that's the direction they took. They didn't really care about anybody else. I've lived on Fair Avenue 44 years now, and I've seen the development on Fair Avenue. I've seen the development of McClellan. When I first got there, McClellan was truck traffic. That's where it went. Not a lot, but that's where it was all at that time. And everything you read, go back in history, you'll find out that was a truck traffic route. And everyone said that. So they are trying to play everybody off from everyone else to try and make a name for themselves in that, because they really don't care about anybody else. I'll say it out front. I'll tell you what was set up at a meeting up in the west end of the county. I was sitting there, and I couldn't believe it was said after this was come up with the dollars that the mining company gave them. They said, well, that, to me, it sounds like legalized blackmail. That's just, when you stop and think about it, that's what it amounts to in that. Either you do this, or we're not gonna let you run through the city. It's gonna cost you X amount of dollars. And so that's kind of the thought that's out there all the way down the line. I don't care what anyone says, but that's what it amounts to. And I think I have the same feeling at this point in time. I think they've deliberately left everybody out of the discussions so they could get what they wanted and go from there. As far as the high-speed truck traffic, I've driven 3rd Street, and I don't see the high speed, especially if they're coming up with a load, they're going uphill on 3rd Street. And they aren't going that fast in that, so I can't see where the problems are in that. I just have a bad feeling that this was done by a few members, and the rest of them followed along, and they looked at the dollars that they're going to get to maintain a road. And I have a bad feeling. I just don't like it a bit in that. And I looked through some of the proposals that the engineer put together in that, and well, they're straightforward. There's no question about that. But the one item in here, and if we're going to talk about that now or later or anytime, one about the county agreement between the City of Marquette and Marquette County Road Commission. On number 3B, talks about permitting funding for the bypass. By August 1st, 16, the city shall designate a north-south truck route as soon as practically possible. To me, you got a hole that you can drive truck after truck after truck through, and it could take 30 years for them to say it's possible to put a truck route by putting those wording in there. So, I don't know. Overall, I think some of this is fine, but I think, as the supervisor said, they put a 2-year moratorium on it to try and force something else to benefit them and put everyone else to come their direction. And I think to go through and do a complete study is the best way to go about that. And they're not going to do it. They got money coming in. They could care less. So that's my feeling.
Thanks, Ernie. Clerk Rattari?
Well, I'm not going to say too much because there was a lot said already this evening, but I just think that the most reasonable course of action is that regional traffic study. And, once you get those results back, we go from there. Until we have that done, I don't really see us, wasting our time doing anything else. So I think get that regional traffic study done, and then that's a starting point to move forward.
Thanks. Yeah, Lynn, I will clear up, part of the city, they have 3 members because that was their negotiating committee. That was their committee that negotiated with Lundin. And so one of the reasons that we stopped meeting was because the city had to come to terms with Lundin. We held the meeting here in the community room, and they said there's no sense in talking about a bypass or whether they would support any type of concept of a north-south truck route until they made a deal with Lundin, or there were all bets were off. So that's where everything was stopped, and that's why they had 3 members, is because that was picked as their negotiating team with Lundin. So when Lundin calls these meetings, of course they had the negotiating team from the city there. There were trucking interests there from various trucking companies as well at different points of those meetings, going back to last October and then through January, when they were suspended until July. The city did offer in that meeting was that, well, if we could hurry up and get this thing permitted and funded, secured, that then they would let some of Lundin's money that they had agreed in their agreement with the city to be utilized towards funding, whatever was left, whether it's $4 million or whatever, towards this bypass. It was one of the things they threw out there. I mean, we didn't get that far as is it in writing or anything? No, but I mean, it was one of the options that one of the members had thrown out. Of course, it would take a city commission would have to look into that more, but I wanted you to, guys also to know that it was something that they talked about. And I keep saying, we're all on the same page here. When we're elected officials, we have to look out for what the greatest good is for the greatest number of people. And we have to make decisions based on it. We might not want to bypass through the township because it might go behind, some expensive housing projects, or it's going to come out in an area that, we don't necessarily know that should be the best place. But if we had some facts behind us, if we did a regional traffic study and it comes out and it says, look, for the next 25 years, here's where we think your growth pattern's heading based upon your land use zoning, those decisions that you made, your master plan, you're kind of steering development towards this way. Commercial truck traffic is just a known entity that you have to learn to deal with. So what are we going to do? So could we, as a board, support the bypass? I think we could, as long as it's fact-based and we know exactly what's going to happen. I think where we're struggling here is that, trying to get something done in 2 years. I mean, you saw what 595 was like in the permitting process. We're talking in that map I handed out was just one of the proposed, like the most westerly route is the red line there. And it talks about bringing it out, and it doesn't cross at the new bridge that was built out in Forestville. It actually crosses in another location, which would require another bridge crossing. There's certainly some wetlands. There's also some other streams and creeks back there that have to be crossed. So there would certainly be some permitting challenges with that. Could it be done in 2 years? I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. But I think that would be aggressive if it could get permitted. Again, we'd be talking about, the condemnation of some property in order to make this come out. Well, should we or could we support that as a board? I mean, the road commission's really the ones who would have to do it. But the road commission works for us and will follow our recommendations, I believe. Sometimes, if we came down to it and it was the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people and it pulled the commercial truck traffic as far west as humanly possible, does it make sense? Maybe, if it's a fact-based decision, and I'll just keep going back to that. Now, the city undertook their own traffic study rather than push for a regional traffic study. That's fine. I mean, they're making decisions that are in their best interests. Getting trucks out of the city may seem like it's in their best interest also. If and when a bypass is built, and I think one day it will be, with the goal being how to ultimately be the safest we can be in the busiest corridor on the UP, move the commercial truck traffic as far west as possible. But if all we do is move it and then have everybody who's going to go east or south run eastward through the same corridor, we've accomplished nothing. What we've done is we've taken westerly, instead of coming out at Walmart and Target intersection, they're going to come out at Midway. One of the routes has them coming out next to Lowe's. Have we really solved the issue? To me, it just doesn't seem like throwing $24 million to move trucks a third of a mile or, is worth it. If it comes out at Midway, would that be a good solution? Potentially, that could be a good solution, is pushing everybody as far west as possible out of the corridor, away from the retail sector, where a lot of the traffic is. But if they're just going to come down from the north and turn left and drive all the way back east again, have we made the corridor safer, or have we just put more trucks heading east and gained a short distance west? I mean, that's where my concerns are, and that's why I think it's critical for them to maintain that north-south corridor for that handful of trucks that will continue to head south down to Escanaba or K.I. Sawyer or, wherever, having the ability to stay, take 550 down and go up McClellan and head out. And we know that when we build the bypass, we're probably going to take 90% of the trucks. And I'm just surprised that the city is even, they're not comfortable with keeping the 5 or 10% that would remain. And that's the part that drives me a little bit crazy. We'll always continue to meet, but I really want the board to know that, we've been consistent with what the board asked, when we had the conversation last year. What are our concerns? And it was, you guys maintain a north-south corridor, and we'll continue to work towards what's the best option for a bypass. Our suggestion of having a regional traffic study, to me, is still very viable. If you think back to, if we could get in our time machine and go back 30 years and re-plan the corridor out, we'd certainly have feeder roads. But we can't do that now, unfortunately. Had we had a regional traffic study 30 years ago that said, man, you guys are going to build up in that retail sector out there, let's get some feeder roads in here and get all these ins and outs and curb cuts and ingress and egress off of that corridor, and let's make it safe and let's get some people out of there. We would have done it if we had that information. All I'm saying is, before we jump in and say, holy cow, we better get this done in 2 years or the city's going to push all their trucks out here and they'll come out on Wright Street instead. Before we make a quick determination like that, then I would go back on saying, you're going to give us a moratorium for 2 years, and if we don't act, then you're going to pick up your football and go home and send all your trucks out into the corridor. It's a bad solution. I don't know that it's the right solution. I don't know that it's the most safest solution. I certainly don't feel that it acts in the best interest regionally. And so I'm looking at the board saying, the next time they call a meeting, Lundin calls a meeting and we go in there, I want to know, from a consensus from the board, are we still maintaining what we've said all along? Are we still maintaining that it requires the city to have a north-south corridor for us to continue to meet with them and talk about a bypass? Otherwise, like I said, then we'll start to push to try to secure funding. Maybe we'll start meeting with Lundin and asking them to go good on their initial agreement, fund the regional traffic study for up to $500,000 and allow us to make fact-based decisions here. But where's the board's comfort level at with this? Pete?
Years ago, and going back several years, 20, 25 years, maybe along with that. When I had my store in Harvey, we sat on a committee where we discussed, they wanted to take from M28, come up 28, and bypass Marquette completely. They wanted to go up 480 and shoot, but they had a problem up by Nagani getting through, but Marquette wasn't very happy about bypassing Marquette. They wanted them to come into Marquette. So now here we are. Now we have to work the problem out, so deal with it. So
We are bumping up against our time limit for the forum discussion, 30 minutes maximum. I want to make sure that anybody here would, Dave, please.
Dave Wigan, 350 Brookton Road. I guess I've been following the whole bypass issue for the last 3 or 4 years, and I keep coming up with the same question. It surprises me that the city seems to be driving the bus on this, and they own less than 20% of the roads that we're talking about. And I don't understand why, if it's not the city that's dictating the way it's going to go, then it's Lundin's that's dictating the way it's going to go. We're not just talking about Lundin's truck traffic. You're talking about a truck route to serve the whole area. So it surprises me that those two groups are determining the direction this whole thing's going to go. I would think if anybody was going to be at the forefront and pushing a regional traffic study, it would be the Marquette County. And if it's not Marquette County, I would think it would be the Township of Marquette, because we certainly have far and away the largest portion of roads that we're talking about in being involved here. And certainly if there's a bypass route, it's going to come through the Township of Marquette. It just surprises me that the city continues to dictate what's going on with that. And I echo Treasurer Johnson's comment about, it seems to me that Lundin is the only group that's paying a toll to use the truck route. And if you're not going to pay our fee, then we're not going to let you come through here. That seems a little strange that the city can do that to any business. And if I remember right, when the McClellan Avenue stretch between Fair and Wright Street was put through, there were transportation dollars used for that. And how can you use transportation dollars for that and then turn around and limit it from truck traffic? Which is essentially what they're doing. Isn't there some penalty you have to pay if you're using transportation dollars for what other than what they were intended to be used for? I just don't see why the city should be sitting in the forefront on this, and I would think that if the county doesn't want to step up and take charge of a regional transportation study, that certainly be in the township's best interest to push it forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
When this first really got on my radar, I think it was, and the person sitting up there I know best perhaps, besides Mr. Zappa, is Randy, and there was a headline telling what Marquette was going to do, and Randy either called me or I called him, and once again, the township had no knowledge of this. It just, you're reading the headlines and you're supposed to react. And when I appeared with Jason a few months ago or weeks ago and made the remarks that you're aware of, I was criticized after I left. Like, why are you talking about this, Mr. County Commissioner? And well, I'm talking about it because it affects all of us. I have the same right as a citizen, let alone as a county board member. I would think at this point, maybe it's appropriate for the township to come to the county board and ask us to do more. We've perhaps appropriately suggested it belongs more with the road commission, and I know Mr. Iwaniki has done his very best on behalf of the township and all of the interests, but perhaps politically he's not quite where the county board as a whole is. So maybe part of what you do is you come back to us in some fashion asking us to do more, and maybe asking Lundin to consider interest of those municipalities that don't suggest something that somebody might reasonably argue is extortion, that maybe they pay attention to those people who are trying to work with them. I don't have very good answers because Marquette County Board of Commissioners has felt that it's a road commission responsibility. But on the other hand, given how this has done, it seems to me there needs to be some counterweight to somebody that doesn't seem to always care about the interests of the whole of the community. And I don't know, Dennis, that anyone can say it better than you. I think many people have on your board tonight have contributed thoughtful things, but you're the guy who's been most involved, and for you to suggest, as you have, that it isn't a very good solution to push it further west if there's still no north-south route and everybody comes back to the east. And I don't know, you have a capable attorney. I try to think of myself in the same way, but there's some things that are beyond me in terms of an understanding. Can a city say there's no north-south route? Can they say that everything gets pushed off in the township? Those are unknowns to me, and perhaps to your council too, but certainly there are people who can research those issues and make determinations, and and there's resources that can be drawn into that. And I do also agree regarding the regional truck study, but whether Lundin has closed its door on that and whether that's too expensive. And then the only other final comment I have is it's probably is, I'll be bolder than you, is probably just far-fetched to think this can be done in 2 years. So maybe I'm out on a limb with that opinion, but it just seems like that's a reach.
Thanks for comments. Anyone else?
Good old Ken. No. Like I said, I've lived here all my life, and I'll tell you one thing. All of us get everything we have from trucks. And we're all going to have some inconvenience with trucks, no matter who we are. So it's a thing that's going to be out there. And I'll tell you, I live on Hampton Street between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. You want to talk about a high speed? I can't get out of my driveway with buses and the cars going to Bothwell School. It's an inconvenience, but I don't think. 7:30, 8 o'clock, so fine, I'm okay with it. It's a couple of times in the afternoon. I've been on the board 10 years, and I went to Flambeau to see where Lundy or Kennecott first built there. So I've seen this go along in the process. And I'll tell you, one of the things the county board did stand up for right away, and I stood there, and I know there's a lot of people who didn't like that I stood up. 595 was a way to go as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm not going to try to resurrect it. Maybe it will be, but I mean, we stood up as county board and we said that it was an important thing, probably more important than the mine. How to get this thing. Nobody was looking at that. We are looking at that. We need a road to get this out of this corridor. And I'll tell you what, I'm disappointed. There's two organizations that did stand up for it. Northern and the City Marquette. I live in the city, but they were not there. Everybody else was there, and if they would have been there, it might have helped a little bit. But as far as the county board, I've been on it a little longer than Steve. We are involved, and we will be involved. The County Road Commission is the one who does the roads. So they have a board, It's independent of us. They do the decisions, but our county board does want, I believe in cooperation. If you aren't going to have cooperation, nothing's going to get done. If somebody wants to yell and scream at me, that's fine. I'm still going to want to cooperate, because if we don't, we're not going to get anything done. Sometimes the city has not told us. There are meetings with the county board, and we have not known about the meetings like you have. So, you know, we can do as much as we can do, and we're going to keep trying, because we're not going to quit, because I'm not going to quit till something's done, whatever it is. And there's so many. I'm really happy to be here tonight to hear the different opinions and see how the township does feel about it, because it's a very important issue. It's not just for township, the city of Marquette, it's the whole county. We all need something. The regional. I was really disappointed with that we didn't get the regional study done, and our board and our administrator, and that's what we thought. We thought that's where it was going. You know, I can't say much more than that, but that's where we thought it was going. So, where it goes from here, I guess we're all going to have to sit down at the table again. I'm not going to quit. I'll sit down with anybody, anytime. There's elections tomorrow, and there's 3 new people on the city commission. There might be 6 new people on the county board. I hope not. So does Steve, but we'll see where that goes. But when there's new people seated, we're going to have to sit down and see where we can go again. You know, I know it's disappointing for everybody. I know I'm disappointed from having Lundin or Kennecott, where they would have financed 595 economically, environmentally. I don't care which way, any way you want to slice it, it would have been the best way. I'm not, whether you agree with the mine, don't agree with the mine, that was the best thing to do. So now it didn't happen. We're just going to have to sit down again and try. So the county will be involved. I know Steve totally wants to be involved. I do, and I know I've heard the other county commissioners. They want to have something done and get some cooperation from everybody, and that's what we're going to try to do. So, but we're not quitting. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? So, folks, here we are. I mean, it's, you know, the end of it, and we wanted to have it open and let everybody have a look at it. We'll continue to move forward. I'll let you know if we get contacted about a meeting. I'll carry forth the same message that we've had. We believe that in having a north-south truck route is in everyone's best interest. We'll continue to explore options for a bypass, but Marquette Township is of the opinion that having a fact-based regional traffic study to base our decisions on is probably the best way to go. We're not trying to block the bypass by any means. The other option we have, the city passes ordinance. We do have the option. We can make road ordinances that cover our roads. I mean, do we want to have a road ordinance that puts weight and restrictions and time restrictions on 550 north of the city or on Wright Street? Can we do that? Certainly we can. But is that in anyone's best interest? I don't get left with a warm, fuzzy feeling by saying, well, you guys block the roads and we'll block the roads, and then we'll figure out, you know, we'll shove the trucks back down Lakeshore. That's not in anyone's best interest. It's not a good solution. It's this for that. And I would much rather that we continue to work together to find out a solution that actually moves us forward, not, you know, backwards. And we're here to listen, but man, I don't think it's a big ask to maintain a north-south corridor while we move forward to work through. We're thrust into this because 595, you know, the feds stopped 595. That's why we're dealing with this issue. And so we've all been thrust into, I think there's a solution, and I think we can get there between the road commission, the county, the city, the townships. I think we can come up with a great regional solution. But it requires a little regional cooperation and a little regional foresight instead of local foresight. And I mean, we can hold our own traffic study or do our own traffic study and look the best way in Marquette Township, but doesn't it make sense to expand that thing out across the county and say, what's the best way to route this traffic, not only commercial traffic, but residential traffic for the next 30 years, and then base our decisions on that, work with MDOT, work with the Marquette County Road Commission, all the various municipalities. Man, to me, that just sounds like the way to go. and it helps all of us, individually and collectively. But thanks for your thoughts, and we may just keep this on the agenda active for the next several meetings, because I think it will continue to be a hot button issue. Next item on our agenda is 9A, unfinished business. Consider the fire department officer training update. I asked Manager Gerard to provide us with an update for the board required officer training for the fire department personnel. There is a memorandum from Randy in your packet dated July 31st. He did give you the slate of officers for 2014 and provided an update of the training. Manager Gerard, anything you would like to add?
Not really. Basically, as you mentioned, it's an update. The training program began in May. This is the current slate of officers and members that are participating. The board's directive was that they wanted all of the officers to be involved in the training program this year. So it's actually 6 months after this year. Some involved, one officer. So this is where we're at as of today.
Any questions for Manager Gerard on the training at all? Seeing none, thank you, Randy. We will, at the next meeting, I have asked Randy to put a resolution together to recognize the one member of the fire department who has completed all of the training, gone through all the different modules, just kind of as a resolution recognizing him for jumping on and being aggressive to get through there. I think he'd probably be a resource for the remainder of the department as they move forward. And I think it's worth commending him for his actions in completing the things he did. If there's nothing else, we'll close and move to 10A, consider the progress billing number 19 on the Public Works building number 8. Manager Gerard.
Pretty straightforward. I really don't have much to add. Mr. Clark thought he would be here this evening, but apparently got tied up. Basically, we're coming to the end of the construction project for the Public Works building. They're in the process right now of finishing I'll say grinding, that's not the proper term, but the grinding and refinishing of the floor surface within the vehicle bay. Beyond that, there are some minor items with connecting through communications, charter communications, and some electrical work that still needs to be done. But essentially, the construction project is completed. They are functioning out of the building currently. They estimate by the 8th of this month, the end of this week, that they should be completely moved out of the old garage. Be ready to move to new ownership at that point. So I would recommend, basically, as I said, this is the completion. Does have the administrative charge and the project management charge included in this, so it's tough to close out the project.
Any questions for Manager Gerard on the progress billing? Seeing none. Oh,
Do we still have the year guarantee on this for anything going wrong?
Oh, we've not accepted the building yet.
Okay.
So it's a year from our acceptance.
Okay.
It's still under the design build contract. We have not accepted the building.
We pay them, but we're not accepting it.
We're paying progress billings, anticipating that the building will meet our specifications and requirements at the time that they present it to us. We'll go through, we'll do a final inspection, a final punch list before we begin.
Clerk Terry.
Do we have an occupancy date schedule?
They are occupying the building currently, but we will not have the final occupancy date until they complete the project.
Okay, so do we have substantial completion then, basically? No. Close?
Very close. I think once they can finish the grinding and refinishing the floor, we'll be substantial completion.
Okay. So we're close, yeah.
Anyone else? Would entertain a motion to approve payment in the amount of $112,513.18.
So moved.
A second.
Motion and support. If there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda, 10B, consider the township manager spending authority increase. I asked Randy to put this into the agenda for our consideration when we had begun to work on our policies, and as you know, the policy and procedures administrative manual that I've been working on, I was going through those notes, and I realized that in there we had all agreed about 3 years ago, it seems, that the manager's spending authority should probably be $5,000. I believe it's still at $2,000, if I'm correct, Randy. And we had talked about it when we were going through developing our policies. I could have waited until we got to either approval or non-approval of those policies as they come before the board. But I thought if we thought it was important enough to talk about it, you know, a couple of years ago when Susan Radwan was working with us, and that at that point we had put in there that we should probably increase it. We'd increase the department heads to, is that 2,000? Or 1,000? And Randy's was at 2. Well, we had talked at that time to, you know, that we should have probably increased the township managers to 5,000. And it probably has been almost 2 years since we had done that. But because we had never adopted policy governance, that policy never went anywhere. So I wanted to put it on there. I think that it makes sense. It made sense 2 years ago, and I think it probably makes sense today. And it gives him the ability to spend up to $5,000. You know, you still see it, you still control it, you still see it, but it would mean that there would be less items perhaps under our consideration on the agenda that we have to deal with. And I wanted to put it out there for the board to consider, and I'll open it up for board member comment. Lynn?
Does that mean that, you know, in my world, it might mean something different than the township because of government, that we wouldn't see whatever the expenditure would be until after it happens?
Yes, he would be able, if something's pending for $4,000, if he, you know, he would have the authority to expend $4,900 or whatever for a project or repair or something before it would come to us. But anything that would be of a substantial amount should have been placed on the CIP and approved by the board before it moved forward with that kind of a dollar amount attached to it. There's not very often that something would come up where Randy is going to be, or any other township manager would be purchasing something for $5,000 on a routine basis that already hadn't been approved in a budgetary process.
This would primarily come into play, not so much with me going out and buying something, as much as it would be, let's say, a server failing with the IT system, or something happening for one of our pieces of fire equipment, or public works piece of equipment that wasn't budgeted, because they hadn't been planned. It would be the ability to go forward and do that on an emergency basis without having to come back to the board. Yes, in that case, you would see it after the fact.
And the department heads could only spend up to $1,000. If Kirk had to buy something for emergency repair that's over, you know, up to $2,000, Randy can approve that expenditure because Kirk can only, for example, spend $1,000, or Chief Sims can only spend $1,000. If he wants to exceed that up to $2,000, Randy can give approval for that expenditure up to $2,000 right now. What we're saying is raise that limit to $5,000.
So I guess what I was thinking is, if I've always been of the mindset it's not the person that you're making a policy around, it's the position.
Right.
So regardless of it's you or Kirk or anybody, because once we put this in place, unless it's addressed again, it's going to stay. So that's the only thing I'm trying to be cautious about. So we could actually put the caveat on that if it were an emergency situation or something like that, because I would hate to think somebody would have $5,000 discretionary spending unless it was something, especially if it's not something the board's even talked about. Obviously, if it's on the CIP or something, that's different. And we've at least vetted it somehow. But to give somebody, again, it's somebody, that discretionary, that's a big chunk of change that we wouldn't see until after it happens. Not that we still shouldn't see it again anyway, it's gonna be on the payables, obviously. But can we qualify it somehow to say that it's not something, if the board hasn't discussed it or something, at least, you know, the treasurer or the supervisor has to be notified or something like that, so.
In an emergency situation, we can already expend the funds if we think that the,
The language that's in your current purchasing policy basically sets that framework.
Right.
All you got was a different amount.
Okay.
right. And it, I mean, when we came up with $5,000, if you'll recall, I mean, it's hard to recall the conversation from, 2 years ago or whatever it was. But the reason we came up with $5,000 is that's a pretty standard amount from other municipalities around us. Some have up to $10,000 in a spending limit. The township manager or city manager has up to $10,000 authority to spend. Not that they exceed that or need to exceed that or even hit that amount very often, but there are times where we have to wait 2 weeks for the next board meeting. If it's going to be an expenditure of $3,000, for example, we have to wait 2 weeks, have it and have it addressed on an agenda item that it's $3,000. And to me, it slows down what we're doing on the agenda, unless you think that your township manager should be spending that money, but you're always still going to see it. It's not like it's hidden. It's still going to be in every time you look at expenditures. You see what was spent, what the money was spent when you're looking at the reports from Lois. So every meeting you're going through there, you can see what was spent. It could be legal fees, for example, could be those kind of things where can he, authorize a payment before it comes to the board. It's not, all we're saying is it's not going to have to be a specific agenda item. He has the authority to spend that kind of money. And I think it's, to me, having department heads at 1,000 and having him at 2,000, when you look at the multi-million-dollar operation that we are, I think we can still provide plenty of oversight with a limit of 5,000. Secretary?
Yeah, and I've looked at other municipalities, and Dennis is right. City managers some have up to 10,000. Department heads have up to 3,000 to spend. So, and they don't do it. There has to be a reason behind it, because I think if we do this, it just helps the efficiency of the operation. Because when this was put into place, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 years ago, things were a lot cheaper in those days. A lot of things have increased. We haven't kept up with the times, and again, that was part of the reason we're redoing our manual, because it was, outdated. So I'll make a motion to increase the manager's spending authority to $5,000.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Additional comments? Pete?
It's just that today's prices of everything has gone up so much, on anything, all parts and stuff like that. And I know Randy and Dennis are always talking anyways. If something happens, they're talking to each other. And so I think we feel very secure in what's going on, and don't think we have to worry about it. So I'm very comfortable in raising it up to 5. And, like Randy said, other managers, other townships are a lot higher, so.
Anyone else? Ready?
I think when we did it last time, it was put back to the Personnel Committee, and we did the research and analysis, and we came back and made the recommendation to the board to go to $1,000 and $2,000 at that point in time. And we looked at everything associated with doing that. So I was a little amazed when I saw it here with no rationale or justification in the packet other than a agenda item in that. So true, you talk about other cities and municipalities, but then you have to look at their total budget in that too. If you take the city of Marquette, yes, their budget is way above ours, and Ishmi Nagani has the same way in that. So in relationship, you have to look at what their budget is and what they're allowing their management to do. I just, question I have is, have we had a problem in the last 2 years or since we did this at that point in time? Has there been a problem in that at all? So the question I have is, to myself, is if there's no problem, why are we considering it in that too? And that, just to do it to meet what other municipalities are doing, to me, that's not the right rationale for that. That's all.
Dan?
Well, I kind of agree with where Ernie's going from. I mean, if there was a problem, I can understand the raising. Obviously, it's built in that if it's an emergency, the manager can do it. I mean, that's a built-in thing. So, I mean, what I heard tonight was we're talking about, well, if we have an emergency repair to a truck or we have emergency repair to a fire department, well, that's built in. So it's an automatic that he can go ahead and do it. If we're having a problem where things are coming up, then I really don't know what would come up that would be more than 2,000. I mean, I also think of what Lynn's saying, $5,000 is a lot of money, but if there's not a problem, then just a rationale because somebody else has 5,000 doesn't make sense to me.
Remember, what I said wasn't that it was to match what anybody else was doing. What I said was, we consider it as an individual agenda item, anything over $2,000. This gives him the authority to go up to $5,000, and it would just be as regular part of, like, you're still looking at all of the things that we've paid out. You get the report from Lois, you go through and you review it, and you're looking at everything. It has nothing to do with whether it matches anyone's. It means it's less agenda items that we have to deal with individually. And it doesn't come up that often, but I bet you if I go back over the last couple of years, you're gonna find, and I'm sure I can go through there and pull it and look at different agenda items that were on here only because they exceeded the manager's spending authority, which means we spend another 20 minutes discussing something that we don't necessarily need to discuss, because our meetings routinely run, 2.5 to 3 hours. It seems to me that if we can eliminate some of these things and move it along quicker, that we would be able to spend our time on other areas. That there's a lot of things I would love to put into agendas that we can never get to based upon the amount of time that we spend on each meeting. And that my thoughts are to streamline it, number one. Number two, we all agreed to $5,000 2 years ago, so I'm not sure what's changed now. I mean, 2 years ago, we agreed that $5,000 was where we were going. We were putting that policy manual together. All I'm saying is when I came across it, I thought, we've never done that. Why didn't we? 2 years ago, we thought it was a good idea. It's probably still a good idea 2 years later. And if there was an issue, then we can certainly address it. But I don't think it comes up that often, other than it's about streamlining the agenda and being able to move through our agendas quicker if we don't have to consider those things. And that's where my rationale was behind it. Clerk Letari.
I guess the only example I'd have found this year that maybe we would have saved some time on is when we swept Warner Street. We went out for prices. It was, I think it was over a little over $2,000, where the manager had to come back to us to get that spending approval. If we had $5,000 approval, just would have went ahead and did it. Would have saved 2 weeks. So, that's what I'm just looking at. It's not like it's a huge increase, but it's something. It doesn't tie, I guess, the manager's hands as much as, on some things. And I do agree. I think some items probably, if it's an emergency, it's going to get purchased. But I think it's going to speed up some efficiency on some items. That it's like Kirk. I think he had a $2,600 tank inspection. Well, if it was, maybe it could have just been on the consent agenda instead. You know what I mean? I see, like, not comparing us to the city, but I see a lot of those purchases are like in their consent agenda, and they're basically on their consent agenda for efficiency purposes. I don't know if that was the best example, but it just kind of like I was thinking.
Thanks. Jason, you wanted to weigh in on this, and I will allow that. I saw you out there on the edge of your seat.
Good evening. First of all, I didn't even know this is on the agenda tonight, but I can think of one example, and I don't know if this affects the procurement policy or not. But should we move forward at Lions Field tonight, a number of things will have to go into effect, and staff will be put into action, essentially. The bidding process. I've been told before if it's anything over $5,000, or what, is that correct, Randy? The threshold of $5,000. Some of these things that we're talking about doing, like earthwork and balancing the Lions Field site. Those things are under that amount, in my opinion, individually. And so it does put delays on action. Like, you always hear government slow. One of the reasons is because if you have that spending threshold, then a lot of times you have to go out and bid projects, and you have to put out an RFP and et cetera. So not even knowing this is on the agenda, that's just one example I can think of that would help speed along the government process.
Thank you. Any other comments, Dan?
Well, in response to that, it is true that, but an RFP is still an RFP. It's the board approves anything that goes out for a bid. I think, I don't want to get into the problem of we can just, arbitrarily pick who we want to pick to do this. I mean, that tends to lead to a major problem with a board situation. So, from that standpoint, I would never approve going, if we're at a $5,000 limit and clearing a field for $4,980 without a board approval of a bid process, because, to me, that just, that just leads to too big of a problem for a board.
What isn't the threshold right now, 5,000 for going out on bids? So that wouldn't change that, right? If his spending authority was 5,000?
There are different levels. Requiring quotations, requiring written bids, depending on out on those.
Right, but again, what I'm saying is if somebody decides, well, okay, I'll give you a quote of $4,980, and we give it to them without the opportunity for somebody else to come in and say, well, if you're gonna go for an RFP, it has to come back to a board anyway, so you can't just arbitrarily pick somebody. I just don't want to see that happen, I guess.
I don't think that's our intention here.
I think just to speed up the process, he's trying to say.
Anyone else? We have a motion and a second. The motion is to grant authority to the township manager to increase his spending authority from $2,000 to $5,000. If there's no other comment or questions, call the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you. Randy, do we need to update our procurement policy and
Yes.
get an update on that then and have that come before the board for adoption? If you could do that and have it for the next agenda, that would be great. Next item on your agenda is consider the road rehabilitation plan millage language approval. I will point out that Council Roger Zappa is here to assist us in this endeavor. Part of what we had considered discussing before, we couldn't exactly do legally, and we are revising how we're moving forward to make sure that we're doing it appropriately, and I will allow Roger to explain that to the board.
Basically, you have two different issues. The first is whether to place the road millage on the ballot in November, which you can do. However, keep in mind that your prior millage runs through 2014, so that'll be collected in 2015. In the big scheme of things, that's probably considered a premature election. That's not a legal issue. You can have an election anytime you want, but you need to be aware that if you do have, place it on the ballot this soon, that you will then be subject to rollback under Headley because you're approving it in a different year than when it'll be levied. So that you could be putting this on the ballot in May, in August, or November of 2015 and still have time to levy it in 2015, in which case there would be no Headley rollback on it. Now, in this, assuming that 2015 looks similar to 2014 and 2013, the Headley rollback really isn't that substantial. There have been some years, I think, when we've been at or near zero, in fact, on that, but I'm just pointing that out, that we don't have that, this does not have to come to the ballot in November. Now, I guess the benefit is more of a political question in terms of whether, when you likely get the most people voting. Traditionally, a May or an August ballot is a very low turnout ballot, so that may be why you're putting it on the ballot now. The second portion of the issue, however, is if the millage is approved, then part of my understanding of what the township board has considered is funding the road repairs and improvements not as you go. For example, in 2016 will be the first year that money is actually collected, but having the millage serve as collateral so that you can borrow from some source in order to have a whole lot of the money available up front. There are a number of different options on how that should be done or can be done, and you generally cannot borrow commercially unless there is a specific statute that says you can. This was just put on my radar on Tuesday of this week, but I have not been able to find a statute that specifically allows us to take a loan from a commercial financial institution. That's not saying it doesn't exist, but I have not found one yet. You may be faced with a situation of preferring to bond this. That's another source of funding. I just wanted this to be placed in front of the board to be aware that you may have some options that you must address even if the ballot is approved, because the funding and the financing has to also be approved in some circumstances by referendum, depending on how you go. If with certain types of bonding, you have to place that before the voters on a referendum if 10% or more petition to do that. So you could still be having a two-prong issue coming forward on this. It's probably fairly unlikely that if the voters pass the millage, that they would ever issue a petition requiring a referendum on the funding component of it, but that is an issue. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't place that out on the table when you have a ballot proposal this early. Certainly what you don't want to do is levy this millage for 2014, because then you'll have a double millage on the voters. It must be a 2015, and if it's a 15-year proposal, it would be 2015 through 2029. So putting it on the ballot at this point is not producing any funds any earlier than if you put it on the ballot in 2015, because you're still not levying it until December of 2015. There's no incentive or no benefit in that sense. But by the same token, that's not a legal issue, that's a political issue in terms of when you want to have the most voter turnout, perhaps.
Thanks, Roger. Manager Gerard, your recommendation?
My recommendation is November of this year. The rationale for that is that it gives us an additional, the full year of 2015 as a building season. And our objective here is to get these roads constructed as quickly as possible. I have been in discussion with the road commission, as we have discussed previously, with regard to them serving as our public works entity through the county. Both county commissioners left, unfortunately, but through the county to bond this project, we would then repay the bonds from the proceeds of the millage, which is what I would recommend that we go forward with. We have met with the county board chair and with the county administrator. They are going to be considering this tomorrow evening. There will be a recommendation from the county administrator and the county board chair to the board to approve the road commission serving in that function and to leave it up to the road commission to initiate the bonding process.
Thank you.
So, as Roger was saying, even though it was on the November ballot, we wouldn't be collecting any revenue until 2016, but 2015 building season, we would have fully at our disposal. And the objective here is to get this done as quickly as possible for the residents and get the roads fixed. Realistically, this project, and, you know, we really haven't talked about it in this vein, but this project could have an impact on the truck driving issue as well. If we do complete renovation, rehabilitation of all of the local roads in the township, we've now provided an opportunity for folks to not have to utilize US 41 should there be truck traffic increase on US 41 and come through the residential areas of Trowbridge.
Randy. So there you have it, folks. There's a road rehabilitation plan millage language. I know there's a resolution in your packet. What's your pleasure?
I'm just trying to put this in perspective. We have a millage that's going to be collecting currently. 0.85 for Winter Street reconstruction. The final allocation of that will be in December of this year, collected in March of next year. So now if we vote the 1.5 in November, that will also appear on the tax statements, will it not? No, it's effective January 1st. Effective. So that will be the following year. Now, going back to what you said, working with the County Road Commission and the county bonding it, if they bond it so that we can generate, they can generate funds to, in essence, borrow to us in anticipation of the dollars coming in on December of 15. It would be a 15-year issue. Be a 15-year bond issue that we would then repay as we collect. Each year we collect the proceeds from the millage.
Which, if I might add, the bonding is a perfectly legitimate means of financing and using the proceeds of the millage. There's a statute directly on point for that, which eliminates some of the concerns that I had with regard to some of the other types of financing arrangements that were being considered. Bonding is, there's some expense associated with that, and it's a highly technical area of the law, but we've utilized bond counsel in the past and have them available. The county has, and the road commission has as well, but Marquette Township has specifically also. So that does alleviate some of the other concerns in terms of issuing an opinion to the Michigan Department of Treasury. Marquette Township is pre-qualified to issue securities because we have in fact filed our audit within 6 months of completion and have submitted the qualifying statement that the supervisor completes annually. Surprisingly, although that's a requirement, many townships, especially in the Upper Peninsula, do not comply with that. So that should expedite, because Marquette Township has consistently complied with that from year to year, that should expedite the issuance of any securities such as bonds. But there is still a very rigorous procedure involved in the issuance of any bonds, whether it's revenue bonds or general obligation bonds. These would not be revenue bonds. That would be something you would utilize typically in a water or sewer project, for example, when you have funds that are raised from fees on the project itself. And we won't have, since we're not building a toll road, we won't have revenue being generated by the project, but we can issue general obligation bonds or a couple of other types of capital improvement type of bonds as well.
Yeah, this will not be a toll road since we're not the same.
Pete?
This is a very, it's the right thing to do. Give it back to the people. They all know how bad our roads are. It's a very aggressive plan, but it's a doable plan. They'll come up to us, they can call up here, they say, when is my road going to be done? We can tell them when it's going to be done. Within 3 years, all the roads are going to be done in our area. It's really unbelievable. I'd never thought that we would be able to see this done in my lifetime. If we don't do it now, you'll never see it done. And so I think we do put it out on the ballot for November and leave the people decide. It just, like I say, it's the right thing to do. We talked earlier at the Road Commission. road committee. Jason's going to come up with some cheat sheets just to show us how much it's going to cost per household, what it's going to mean to you. We're going to hold some meetings here in the afternoon and in the evening. You're going to come in. You'll be able to look at your house, how much it's going to cost you, answer the questions you might have. So watch the paper, call up here, ask questions. We're not trying to hide anything. We want you to be completely comfortable with this process. And like I say, it's the right thing to do, and it's at the right time. Marquette Township is on the move. We're very progressive, and so it'd be kind of nice. It's going to help all of us. It's going to build our township, so call and ask the questions. Don't just sit back and do nothing. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Randy, you had something to add?
Just at this point, just a quick note for those of you who may not have noticed the four maps that are over here on the easels. Jason has put those together, and basically what that is, those four maps indicate the first map is the total project between 2015 and 17, and then each map shows what roads are going to be done in that year. And that's basically our program. So any of the residents that are seeing this on YouTube or listening to the meeting or hear about the meeting, certainly come into the Township Hall and take a look at it if you'd like. We'll be putting those up on our webpage and up on our Facebook page as well, but it will show you what roads are being done in what years, what the plan is.
They can come in here anytime during the day,
Anytime.
Randy?
Anytime.
Okay.
Ernie?
Follow-up couple of questions on the bonding and that. The county board may approve it to go forward in that, but the biggest question is, they have to wait until after the election to take the next step, because they have to make sure that people approve it. And the question I have, Roger, I'm trying to think back in time as to how long it takes the bonding agent to go through that before you can do all that and then you can start collecting any dollars. Do you have any concept of time frame on that? Because there isn't a lot we can do until we get all the steps going through and the bonding agents get through, so we get some dollars flowing in that.
I guess the only comment that I have on that, and I wish Kirk was here tonight, the only comment I have on that is we've routinely bonded for our water and sewer projects. We've gone through a bonding process on that, and from memory, it's like 60 to 90 days, basically, to go through that process with the public notices and things such as that about the financing. And that would be done by the road commission. What the process is if, presume, let's say, tomorrow evening, the county board agrees with what the proposal is and give the County Board of Road Commissioners the approval to go forward and act as our Department of Public Works for the roads in this case, and to pursue the bonding process, that would give the Road Commission the authority at that time to start immediately doing that process while we're waiting for the millage to pass. If the millage passes, then they're poised, ready to go to pull the trigger and get going on it. That would give them the winter, basically this winter, to get all that process finished. They are going to, the Road Commission has agreed to be the design engineer. They will design the project. They'll do it on the design-build process, just like we did with these buildings. They would be the ones that would secure the general contractor and be prepared to go forward. So in the spring, when the building season starts, we'll have bid the project, and we'd be ready to start it this spring of 15.
When you say the contractor, with what we're doing over the next 3 years, it's a major project. I don't know if there's one contractor in the local area could handle it all, and that's another question.
The beauty of this whole thing. The Road Commission will be the agent, basically. They'll do the bidding for us, and what their intention on the design-build process is you have one general contractor, just like we did for these buildings. Cornerstone is our general contractor, who then subcontracts various parts of the work to other contractors to get it done within that time frame. They would manage that.
Lynn, anything else?
Yeah, so then basically we have to change the ballot language, right? Or I think we should, to say, if this goes for this year, to amend it with the years that it's gonna take place, so that we'd have,
The proper years should be in the ballot proposal that we just put together.
but you're saying, except that you're saying it's not, well, that part of it,
It'll be levied in
the
2015.
people are gonna think that their taxes are gonna change.
They will in December of 2015.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They're gonna think that they're gonna change January 1st.
No,
of 15.
The taxes go out in December.
I know that, but I think because they're thinking they're voting for it now, that it should be qualified a little bit clearer to say that this won't happen until 15, the end of 15.
Taxes are always levied
I think
as of
it's-
December, as of tax day, the
Which
end
is-
of the year, December.
But getting back to what Lynn said, this is true, but there's individuals that look at it and say, okay, I'm voting now, so we're gonna get the money right away next year.
Right, they don't realize there's that whole year lag.
And that's something, that's gonna be an informational thing that we have to get out to the people.
Correct, and that's what I was addressing, is you need to be, as part of that information, emphasizing that you have current road millage that isn't expiring until December of this year, so there is not going to be a double levying of the, because you could, for example, put a millage for a road proposal on the November 2014 ballot and still levy that millage in December 2014 and collect it in 2015. You do not want to do that in
Right.
this case, because that would be .85 mils as rolled back is .84 something right now. Plus 1.5, and that is not what is being proposed here. What is being proposed is a new 1.5 road millage after the .85 has already expired. That's why I'm saying, to some extent, it is a premature election, because normally you would not be having this election until after your road millage had actually been levied for the last time. That is going to be an educational process, but the ballot language is correct. It will be levied in 2015 through 2029 if it is approved. That means that it's on tax day in December of 2015 is the first time it gets levied, and it does not get collected in the source of revenue by Marquette Township until 2016. By the same token, the last time the .85 is being levied, that was for Werner Street and the non-motorized path at the end of Werner Street and Brookton Road and any other projects, that is still being levied this year.
December
There's no overlap.
is the final levy.
So all I'm saying is that in the first sentence, when it says, when prior road improvement millage expires in 2014,
Right.
that we add to be collected in 2015, because taxpayers don't pay attention to that. They don't realize that there's that year lag of when it's collected. And then add at the end that the project will begin with bonding or something in 2015.
Now they are confused.
I think that gets,
You need to have something that passes a clarity test, and we've already got the extra language in that we inserted that says when prior road improvement millage expires. That's surplusage that in most ballots you would not put in, but to clarify and make it abundantly clear, that's why that's there, that we have 2014 millage, and this assessment, this levying doesn't start until the 2014 millage has ended, has expired. So it should make it clear, and by the same token, you don't want to have a page and a half ballot language,
Right,
because people's
yeah.
eyes will just glaze over, and if there's confusion, they'll all vote no. If somebody doesn't understand something because it's too
Yeah.
long or too complicated, they just vote no because it's the safe thing to do. So that's why we try to be fairly concise on what goes in there.
And leave it up to us to explain it to them.
that's
And
where the
precisely
education
the point,
process
that-
comes
That
in.
becomes our educational process to inform people that the way the Michigan tax code works is your last levy of the .85 is in December of this year. The new millage will come into place December of 2015, it'll be levied, and what that will be is the equivalent of the current 85 continuing and an additional .65 being levied. It's 1.5 total, not 1.5 plus .825.
Okay.
Which I think is easier to explain in a utility billing and then on a one-on-one,
Okay.
and, you know.
Yeah, okay.
And then keep in mind that that whole issue about what year the tax is being levied versus when it's collected, I believe that came up, if my memory serves me correctly, with the Iron Ore Heritage Trail a couple of years ago, where they put out a ballot proposal, and I'm not sure who, if anybody, reviewed it, but they thought they were going to be collecting in, I don't recall what year that was, 2009 or whatever it may have been, when they didn't really collect till 2010, so they had a whole year hiatus there, so it's very important as part of the educational.
They came back and asked us
Yeah.
for additional money.
Right.
I know, I was one of they.
Yeah.
I remember.
So that's part of the educational process, is just having folks understand that they're not getting hit twice here, that it's new millage in the sense that we haven't had a 1.5 mil tax for roads before, but it's really only replacement millage of a new 0.65 because the 0.85 millage that was levied for 5 years is now expired as of the end of 2014.
So when somebody asks, then when do we tell them their tax bill will change? And because I'm asking that so it'll be on camera.
December of 2015
Okay, the bill they pay in December 15
will be
will
1.5
reflect
mil
that.
total.
Okay, good.
And that's the bill that they're technically paying, if they're doing it in a timely fashion, by March 1st or whatever the deadline is of 2016.
Okay.
Clerk Terry?
Yeah, the only thing the township board is being, or I guess I am being asked tonight, is whether or not to put this question, millage language, on the ballot for the residents to decide. If it is approved, then it's up to us, or if it's approved tonight to go forward to the ballot, then it'll be the township board's and staff responsibility to educate the residents between now and the election in November about the ins and outs of this question, basically. And it's not pro or con, because we can't do that, but we give factual based on what's going to happen in the next 3 years. If we do that, and if we do put it on the ballot, and it does not pass, then everything is stopped. So, tonight we're just asking to put it on the ballot for the residents and give everyone an opportunity to educate the public and move forward on this.
Bernie, go ahead.
Looking at, I'm assuming what I'm seeing in front of me is going to be on the ballot at this point in time. A suggestion, that first sentence, when prior road improvement millage expires in 2014, can we put that in heavy black so that's the first thing they see? Because it stands out, because they're talking about expires in 2014, and then the rest of them shall the authorized millage. That it's telling them that it's going to expire in 2014. Now, I don't know how that's going to play when you start reading the whole way through, but I'm trying to get the word across to them that we're talking about the current one is going to expire in 2014. Does it make sense, Roger?
Well, it makes sense, which is why we put it as the very first
I know.
thing that they see there. I'd have to check the statute. I don't know if there's anything that specifically says on what, for example, when you record a deed, the font and so forth has to be within a certain parameter of size and so forth. And I'm not sure off the top of my head if there is anything like that for a ballot proposal or not. But that was kind of the rationale of not having it in the middle someplace. We could have said, shall the authorized millage for the Charter Township of Marquette as reduced by whatever, and be increased by 1.5 mils after the current road improvement millage expires in 2014. We put it right at the beginning, so it's front and center, right where it is. So I guess that's why we worded it in that fashion.
Clerk Terry?
After looking at ballots for the last 10 years, I haven't seen a bold in anywhere, so I don't think that would be.
Well, after looking at them for 30 years, neither have I. But that's not to say that you can't. I've just not run across that before.
Randy, something to add?
Just two quick comments. First of all, with regard to if the board accepts the proposed millage language and we move forward with that, and the county board has their discussion tomorrow evening, Jim Iwaniki was in the meeting with me this afternoon with Jerry Corcoran and Scott Urbish, and the road commission is very excited about the proposal and are highly supportive of going forward with this. So that is the recommendation that we're going to the county board as well. Second thing is that one of the things that we can very easily do, if the board adopts this millage language for the ballot, there's nothing that would stop us from doing a publication that has this language on it and then says, what does this mean? And then clarifying it below and publishing that.
And you could put anything you want in bold print, certainly
Whatever,
in
if
that.
we publish it.
Again, however, no public funds
Nope.
may be expended for any type of position in terms of whether it's in support of or against. It's strictly informational of if this proposal, if you check yes, this is what will happen. If you check no, this is what won't happen. That type of information is, can be disseminated, but you cannot disseminate anything with public funds or even public use of paper or buildings that would support or not support the millage proposal.
And really what this board is doing is answering the last question that the residents asked you in the community-wide survey. Fix our roads. That's what you're doing. You're answering that question. Here's how we can do it. Do you agree?
Ernie, you had something else?
No, no.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing nothing, I think we're waiting for a motion to move the resolution forward.
I'll make the motion to approve the language.
I'll second that.
Other comment as
We did.
resolution. Clerk Rattari?
And the resolution will be adopted as written, and it will be in the minutes as such. Trustee Durant,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Pompo,
Yes.
Trustee Truscott,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Limita.
Yes.
Motion carries. I will promptly get this out to the county clerk tomorrow.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is consider Lions Field warming house plan approval. Mr. Springer did ask to reserve some time for this, and we do have Planner McCarthy here as well, who is going to,
Dazzle us.
we do have his transmittal dated July 31st about the warming house plan set. He included the background in there, which was pretty thorough, and talked about where we're at and where the funding came from. Mr. Springer?
Yes, Mike Springer, here tonight on behalf of the Rec Committee. The plans that you have in your packet are well thought out, well vetted. If you take a look at our recently updated rec plan of 2014, you'll see the master plan. Lions Field shows a warming building adjacent to a proposed upscale and reoriented ice rink. Improvements such as the warming building can also be found in the action plan of the rec plan. With this in mind, Planner McCarthy pursued a Cliffs Lundin grant. It was a well-written grant because we were awarded $100,000 to be used on a brick and mortar project. The Recreation Committee prioritized Lions Field projects, and in June the committee began working on the design of the warming building with an architect. In July, UPA worked with the committee on the mechanical plans. Mr. Wiegand has kept the Planning Commission appraised of the plans for this structure and has been also helpful in working with Mr. McCarthy in moving this forward. While we encourage your questions, suggestions, and input, the Recreation Committee would like the board's unanimous approval tonight in order that we're able to move forward and be able to have a warming building in, at Lions Field for this winter's activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Jason?
skip through several of these slides. Thank you, Michael. Just wanted to show for the folks who are at home the culmination of this design, which included a fairly large utility room area to be able to house apparatus to maintain the ice surface, a restroom facility for men and women, and a little vending area. So the overall dimensions are 36 by 24 with, I'll show you on the elevations here. So this is the west elevation. If we back up one, this is looking and north is up, okay? So the south doors would come out into the, what would be the existing, just about the existing right-of-way on Erie, and the north would come out to the actual ice surface. So this is the west entrance. This is where an apparatus would be able to come out, maintain the ice, go back in, or just general park maintenance equipment, okay? So it's another storage building, in essence, on one part of the building just by its size and its setup. So the north elevation, so you have a door that exits out into the ice rink area, covered by a gable end, and then you have a door there to the right, which will serve as a man door for the maintenance area, which is separated and secure from the warming shack area. South elevation. Also had some ideas from other rec committee members about adding some couple windows so that you have see-through ability. Not that we project to have any issues with security or behavior, but anyway, it's just another level of security along with the door having a window as well. So this would come out into the general park area. If you remember the Lions Field plan, this would come out into the other activities. It could be accessed during the summer for, you know, people have barbecues or whatever, they could use the restroom. And this is the east elevation, which doesn't have a whole lot going for it, but it will look nice as proposed. And then you have the two gable ends. So awnings were added for, you know, shelter and ability for people to get out of the weather should it become inclement. Actually, Chief Sims had the idea of the roof line being situated the way it was to reduce the amount of snowfall or ice buildup coming down onto patrons of the rink. The exterior material type is proposed to look similar to the well house down the Wellhead Road. We wanted to have something that was aesthetically pleasing because it is in a highly visible area and it is in a neighborhood. Not to say that vinyl siding or another material wouldn't work, but we also wanted to separate it out from a house residential type structure and to make sure it's denoted as a public building. And this is just another example of the exterior. Some of the cool features, in my opinion, that were able to be incorporated is in-floor heating. Of course, we'll have drinking fountains in there as required by the rec committee members. And a neat feature that I utilized, actually we utilized in Ashland, Wisconsin for our restroom facility downtown was the solar tube lights, or solar light tubes as they're called. So essentially, they provide solar lighting. Anytime that there's not enough light and it's calibrated, the normal lights that you see in here would come on as you walk in the door. If not, and it's light enough, there won't be any lights that turn on. So they really perform well. And I think there's 6 or 8 of them that are proposed throughout the building. So, cost savings measure, we have, you know, like I said, radiant in-floor heating that should basically everything I think above 5 feet is the same temperature below. So keep everybody warm on those cold days. And staff, as well as the rec committee, hope that the board will consider approving the plan. We did have a number of different staff members that were included in the planning process, or, you know, coming up with ideas for the structure. Of course, not everybody agrees on everything all the time, but I think that all of our ideas, in one way or another, were incorporated into the design. The plan set that you have, or that I forwarded to you, are ready for building permits, which is pretty nice. We are lucky to have a strong volunteer base, and we're proposing to build this ourselves, except for the exterior brick. Okay, mechanicals and block work. So basically, I'll be out there with Dave, learning how to do some carpentry work. But we hope, if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. But this is our best shot at providing an aesthetically pleasing, efficient warming shack, warming house for Lions Field Ice Rink.
Thanks, Jason. What's the board's pleasure?
Move it on.
Lynn?
So is the floor heating the only source of heat? Is that what you're thinking, or would there actually be a furnace that's gonna keep it warm all the time, or even on cold days, if there's no snow?
It's my understanding
that
that the in-floor heating is the base heat. I mean, we could add rating.
There's a boiler in the maintenance facility that operates the radiant for heating.
Jason, was this vetted by the building and grounds crew as far as the size of the utility room there for holding their equipment?
Yes, and primarily it's why it's so big, the utility space. But you have an apparatus or two. The fire department has considered helping out with this again, and they wanted to make sure that A, we had a big enough space for that apparatus, and two, that they had the right piece of equipment to do the work. And so we try to accommodate those. You're going to have some hose in there, other things to maintain the park. So it's a little added benefit to have some extra space and some room to grow.
Clerk Terry?
Yeah, Jason, I guess my question would be is, this would be phase one of basically this area. Sometime down the road, I hope that if we do end up getting a roof over that rink, how does this design incorporate into that? Does it,
Good question, and thanks. One of the reasons that the gable end was done is the way it is, so that that roof line could tie into it should the rink be covered in the future.
okay, good.
Ernie?
A couple questions. You touched a little on security. How about, what kind of security do you anticipate putting in that building?
We could do cameras that could be viewed by, and that's actually one of the ideas they had for the township in general. In some communities, you see that they'll have a webcam up that just shows general weather conditions of your township, even though it's pointed at something. But this could be the same thing. I always thought webcams were neat because if you had one on the ice surface itself or inside the building, you could actually see who was there. Kids could see, oh, my friend's there, and they can go play. Or hey, the ice looks kind of light right now, and maybe we can get some skating time in. So certainly, as with any neighborhood project, I think over time that the neighborhood will embrace the structure and the ice rink, and I think that they'll kind of self-police it. But as far as security, it should have hours. You go in, we'll lock it up and open it up in the morning. Depends how the board wants to move forward with it.
The other question I have, when you says construction performed by the rec committee, I think that's fine, but when I start looking at the in-floor heating and that, where you have to lay that all out and pour the concrete and everything else, I'm just wondering if the expertise is there to do all that.
That's why the expertise is there, but that's why qualifying, you have to have mechanicals have to be licensed individuals, and that includes the in-floor heating and all the electrical. That all has to be done with licensed individuals.
All the plumbing, everything has to be done.
Yeah.
Because it's a
It has to
public
be built
building.
to code.
Other questions? Dan?
Well, I guess I look at that also, construction proposed to be performed by the rec committee. I understand that it'd be nice savings and everything else, but like anything else I've seen with volunteers, it tends to add on to the time frame to complete the building. And we did get a $100,000 loan or $100,000 grant. I guess I'm curious why we're not going out on bids to build this building. plus the fact that if anything goes wrong with the building, we can go back to the contractor.
I guess I can address. It'll be done properly, it'll be done in code, and it'll be done as expensively as we can do it.
Trustee Pompa, would you be open to asking the other firefighters if they'd be interested in helping out with the construction? If we were able to schedule some work these?
Well, I would propose if you wanted to do that, and if this is the way you're gonna go with it, that you would ask them. I don't really feel as a board member, I wanna go back and ask them. Again, I'm just looking at, from the standpoint that I've seen, this is a big project. We did get $100,000. I guess my question is, what are you gonna do with the rest of the money that you're not gonna be spending? I mean, if you have volunteers doing this, it isn't gonna, obviously not gonna cost $100,000 to do this building.
The bulk of the building is going to be done by other contractors. The masonry work, which is all the walls and the floor, and all of the mechanical work, which is the plumbing and heating and electric, is all going to be done by other contractors. Just to put your mind at ease a little bit, I've been a licensed contractor for 40-plus years, and I'm just happen to be in a position where I can donate my time to make sure that this gets put together and we can keep our costs down. There'll certainly be an outreach for some other volunteer help, but regardless, I'm still licensed and qualified to do the construction portion of it.
Thanks, Ed. For that clarification.
And I have no problem showing up and requesting. the
Well,
work.
again, I don't have a problem with the clarification part of it, but again, my question is if you have a grant for $100,000 for a warming shed and you don't use the $100,000, what are you gonna do with the rest of the money?
That'll be up to the board.
Well, I guess it wouldn't be up to Lundin, who gave you it's like when we go out for grants for anything else for the fire department, you go specifically for what you are asking for, and you got a grant for a warming shed. So wouldn't it be up to Lundin to say, well, wait a minute, you got your warming shed, it only cost us $60,000, so we'll take $40,000 back of it.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a gross misuse or undervalue of the grant.
Again, I'm not saying it's gonna be a gross misuse of the grant. I mean, if you wanna put $40,000 to the rink, that's fine. But my question is, when we go out for fire grants, when you go for a grant, you specifically tell them what the grant's for. In this case, your grant was for a warming shed. Is there leeway in the grant to say, well, okay, we have this much extra money, can we put it this way, is my question.
And that's a great question, thank you. I haven't had that discussion yet with them, but if it comes down to the point where we're going to have a fairly sizable amount of money left over because of the volunteer service that we have in the community and because of cost savings, I have no issue going back and asking them if that can be attributed to the rink itself.
When we initiated these discussions and were encouraged by Lundin to apply for the grant one evening in a conversation with Paul McCrae, Paul encouraged me to apply for a grant for whatever we needed at Lions Field because he felt very confident that it would be looked upon favorably because they're looking to make an investment in the community, and especially in an area that was revolving around youth sports. So I think that they would look favorably upon our usage of the funding to be able to pour the concrete for the ice rink if there were that type of funds left over available because we used volunteer contributions on the labor.
And also by adding the pavilion on both sides, canopy, I should say.
Other questions? Anyone feel like making a motion in regards to this matter?
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Motion and support to accept staff and rec committee's recommendation to approve the warming shack building concept as per the plans provided. Any other questions or comment? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work on this, Rec Committee and Jason. The next item on your agenda is the manager's report. You do have the written transmittal from Manager Gerard. Manager Gerard, anything you'd like to add?
Just a quick reminder, the first item on there is the FDA's summit. Sure, I can check the date, see how many programs, what it is here in Marquette. The budget process has begun. We've got a preliminary schedule here, obviously, the work sessions are going to be established by the board based upon what your calendar is. We do have some, a couple of dates that I plugged in there for the public hearing and tax levy. Those give us plenty of time, a month ahead before we were last year. Erie abandonment, we, as I believe somebody mentioned earlier, the judge has signed the vacation order, so Erie has been vacated now. We will be, now the community day is over with the road commission to have blacktop taken up. And we'll be exchanging that chunk blacktop, and they put it that way, that they take out for regrinding to resurface the road behind sidewalks. Connections to, work needs to be done on that. It's not on your agenda, and we didn't address it in the manager's report because I wasn't aware of it. But apparently, there's some discrepancy with the charter communication notice that had gone out. The notice that we received, that was transmitted out to the board members, indicated that two devices for 2 years, and apparently what the residents are receiving is one device for 12 months. So I'm not sure what that issue is. If there are any questions, I would suggest to contact the phone number that's on the publication and ask Charlie what's up.
Questions for Manager Gerard? Ernie?
With the, us moving into the new Public Works building and vacating everything over there, what has been done for the leaf pickup and all that? Have we got that finalized yet?
We have another site that we've got availability to, which is off of Wright Street, near Target, behind Target, on the other side of Wright Street, corner of the two exits at that point. The other barrel property, we have the ability to utilize that. We are still utilizing the site for
Okay, and you had mentioned about taking the blacktop and regrinding and putting it on that sec.
The road commission has a supply of regrind blacktop. They do not have the capability to chew it where it's at, basically, so they'll be taking it out in chunk form from Erie. They'll be taking that and giving us an equivalent amount of regrind back to put onto that roadway.
That roadway over, across by the old Township Hall?
Correct.
Eventually, that property is going to be sold sometime.
Eventually it will, but we're gonna maintain that easement for.
That's the question I have.
We are going to be maintaining that easement for access.
Okay. That was
My guess is that it will be turned into the driveway to access the other property as well, but that's gonna be there.
Other questions for Manager Gerard? Dan?
To dovetail back on the truck route, it's been quite a few years, and I know we've had issues back and forth, but we still need this access road to the Target side. It's only going to be to the safety of the township. I know we've discussed this many times. I know that Up the Sky, it was supposed to be in there when they do theirs, but we haven't heard anything from there. It's just another year that we're going by. I know initially at one point in time, we were told that if any more project was done on the Lowe's side, that the owner of the property was supposed to put this road in, and that hasn't happened. I'm just getting more and more concerned about the fact that this road just keeps getting put off and off and off. I know the fact that we say roads, But this is, out of all the roads, this is one of the big questions I keep getting asked constantly, is when is this access road going to go into the Lowe's side? We're talking about getting people off of the 41 corridor. That's probably the most obvious way to do it. And I'm just curious as to where we're moving in that.
Well, anytime these kinds of questions come up, certainly you can give me a call at any time. It's unfortunate that Planner McCarthy has left, because we have been in continuous discussions with the property owner and the developers, and it is part of the Up the Sky project that is currently awaiting a court decision on access.
Other questions for Manager Gerard? Pete?
Commerce Road. Can you update us on Commerce Road?
It's gravel. It's in the process of the chip seal process, and as of today, I was talking with Kurt Tavola, and about it will be completed this week. Basically, what they do, they put the tar down, they put the fine aggregate on top of it, let it cure for a period of time. They will come back through this week and sweep up the excess, and then put the sealant coat over top of it. So that should be done by the end of this week.
Are they going to do any other roads like that?
Well, no, this is a separate road that we did. We did this as part of the annual crack and seal. This was not part of the road project.
Sweeping of the roads. Are they doing any, we were supposed to be on later?
Sometime in August is what they're telling us, and it's now August.
I was just going to say, according to my calendar, August is here.
That's the most recent update that I have with the sweeping, is that the road commission is still looking at having us done in August.
On regrind, can they take some of that regrind if they have any extra left over from Starbucks? Can they go along Vanderboom Road like there and on Woodridge where the rain is washed out?
I don't think anything's going to be done on Vanderboom Road. That's yours. No.
It's really bad.
Well,
Woodridge,
we have been.
One driveway is washed out.
Yeah, we have been talking with the road commission about their ability to address some of those washout issues, and basically many of the washout issues originate from culverts that have been covered by the property owners. They've put grass down into the ditch, they've filled into the ditches, and those are issues that they're trying to work through. But I can't commit that they can do that, but we are. Every time I get a message about one of those failures or one of those washouts, I pass it along to the road commission, and I know they're trying to do what they can do, but that's one of the reasons we're doing our project, is to try and alleviate as much of that as we can in the township with channeling water where it's supposed to be.
Well, I worry about a little bit about that, because every time we get a rain, we get more washout with the lighting problem that we have in the township. People with bikes and that at night, and people walk, so somebody's going to get hurt one of these days, and I hate to see that. So, all right.
Other questions for Manager Gerard? Seeing none, Randy, I have one last question for you, and that has to do with the facility sale. You have in there that we anticipate that the final relocation, I know that floor grinding got delayed and kind of pushed us back.
Correct.
I know when I toured the Public Works facility with some of the guys last week, they said that they really needed about 1 day to finish cleaning out the other garage over there. What do you have left to do to facilitate the transfer of ownership?
Make sure the buildings are empty. That's it. That's all we're waiting for.
Okay. And so would
We've
you anticipate
continued-
that we would have that before this board within 2 weeks, or are we looking, I guess we've all been kind of chomping at the bit to see the facility sold, and Public Works was delayed a little bit here, but I would just like for the board's edification to know when we can expect to have that completed.
I would certainly hope Civil Council has reviewed all of the documents, so it's passed all of that muster. All we have to do is to get them signed and, get the buildings empty, get them signed, and get them back here. So I would expect within the next 1 or 2 meetings.
Thank you. There's no other questions or comments for Manager Gerard. We'll move to public comment. Anyone wish to address the board at this time?
Oh, okay.
Seeing none?
No, wait.
Dave Wigan, 350 Brookton Road. First, I'd like to thank the board for the action they took on a warming house tonight. I think their quick action on that will hopefully get that up and usable by the time winter gets here, so we can have some cover for them over there. Another comment, while it's fresh in everybody's mind about the roads rehabilitation project, is the road committee met before the board tonight, and we're already talking about a putting together an education program for the residents, and we're looking at recommending something on the way of 1 to 2 meetings a week, meeting an hour over lunch and an hour in the evening over in the community room to make sure that we can get as many people in, answer as many questions as we can with regard to what effect it has on them, and exactly what these maps mean over here with what roads are going to be repaired and when. So we're already looking at that, and there will be something before the board, I would think, by the first part of September to kick off an education program that'll carry on through the election in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment, move to additional comments from board members. Lynn?
I just want to say that I try to participate in as many activities as I can in the township, and I'm sorry I've missed the community days the last 4 years, but that's one of my busiest weekends. I don't get to church, I don't sleep, I don't do anything that weekend. So I just want you to know my heart's in the right place, but it's probably not going to happen unless I get lots of help or something. That's all, because I know y'all work hard on that, and it's a good thing.
Thanks. Anna? Bernie?
I think, follow up on, like Lynn said, on the community days. I have another major function I've been involved with for 39 years, and it's on the same date. So when they changed it a year ago, I was able to get involved with it, and I really enjoyed it. Had a great time in it. But when they moved it back to the first Saturday, it kind of coincided with the Gem and Mineral Show, which I've been involved with for those years, and can't get out of that. I can't get anyone to step forward to do the work I'm doing. So it's one of those things that we all get involved with, and then try to find someone to step forward, and it's almost impossible.
Well, I thought you were at a rock and roll concert. It was a Gem and Mineral Show.
It was a Gem and Mineral Show, and you know very well it was a Gem and Mineral Show.
Thanks, Ernie. Pete?
I laughed, Ernie, because we were over there and someone said, you know, you got to get to that guy who got that rock and mineral show and have him change the date. But a while back, we went through conduct for board members. And one of these days, I'd like to throw on our agenda there, or work study, conduct for department heads. I'd like to review that thing and discuss that, so.
Dan? Secretary?
Election tomorrow, of course, everyone won't see this till Thursday, so we'll be done by then. But hopefully the election goes well, and if there's any concerns or comments or questions on the election, you know where I am. I'll be here, so I have nothing else.
Thanks. Again, thanks for all the volunteers who turned out to make Community Events Day over at Lions Field a success. That includes all of you who turned out to participate by joining in, having some food, listening to some music, or playing ball. All the volunteers who showed up early and worked hard. The Marquette Township Fire Department for churning out a lot of great chow once again this year. And having all the volunteers show up and maintain that and stand over a hot grill. I personally witnessed Trustee Pompo. I think he lost about 20 pounds sweating over that hot grill. But they did churn out a lot of food, and it was good. If you missed it, again, hope to see you next year. We'll do it every year as long as we can, or we have interest. I think that the music portion of it is very popular, especially the band playing at night. Bring your lawn chair, relax, have a beverage of choice, and listen to some music. It's a great neighborhood party, and I think when we got together as a board, one of our goals was to figure out ways to get the community together and get a rallying point, and this is one of those events, along with some of the others like the car show and the Christmas tree lighting, which also leads me to just remind you, if you haven't gotten involved with your township, remember, you get the government you deserve, and there are many fine volunteer opportunities for you to be able to jump in and pick something that you're passionate about, and you absolutely will get the support of this board. We'll rally behind you. We'll turn you over to the events committee or any other area that you're interested in, be it beautification or anything else. There's just a plethora of fine volunteer opportunities just awaiting your phone call or application. With that having been said, I'd entertain one last motion for this evening.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passed. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
9:26 p.m.